Welcome, trainers, to another segment of this so-called podcast that I'm trying to push a little bit more on a daily basis, but we are, trying to come up with ways of putting out content without having to spend too much time editing, because as I mentioned in the first audio segments, that things are just really getting super busy, and between editing, streaming, and freelance work and travel, sometimes it gets a little tricky as far as producing content on the daily. But I've been wanting to produce this type of content. I do miss doing audio and podcasting of sorts, so we're just giving it another jab. And I've got some feedback from people where they want to join as well too, which is cool. So we'll probably in the future join and have some people, be a part of it. We can have a whole audio podcast dedicated, a segment dedicated to that person, and or maybe have different clips. Not 100% sure, but we're still working on it. But without that ramble, hopefully everyone had a good weekend and Valentine's weekend. We did end up playing recap from last week, Master League, and for the most part, we really focused on Enamorous. The past night or so, not actually Sunday, but Saturday, we did play some random teams, some that were suggested through chat, and just some odd spicy stuff, which, it's just fun. Once you hit Master, not hit Master, but once you hit Legends, you can then go around playing some spice. But in the meantime, sometimes I just like to use something that is somewhat meta and climbing along the way. But coming up is going to be all leagues. Now, I think for this episode, at least, we're going to be talking mostly about Great League and maybe give Ultra League a little bit more of a shot this coming day or so. But Ultra League, Master League, and Great League Cups are open for this week of February 18th from 4 p.m. to the 25th until 4 p.m. And based on battles last week, I didn't see much changes in terms of teams that I mentioned, but there was another introduction that I did not consider about, which was pretty interesting, Hoopa. I've been seeing some people play around with that Pokemon, and you know what? Like, with the CP and the stat product that it has, it can have actually play in Master League, and I'm hoping to see if it gets a little bit more of that love and attention after this weekend's with the raid, day, hour, whatever it was. I wasn't really honestly paying too much attention. Again, I was just too busy over the weekend trying to come up with drawing and freelance projects that I just haven't had a chance to raid, which I really wanted to. It's nice to have another edition of a Psychic and Dark type in the meta, and with, it having an Astonish, it would have been pretty interesting to see how it would play out. But, based on the two appearances from our opponents running it looked like it could be a force to be reckoned with. I would say look up other content creators in the Pogo community on YouTube, because they have showcased it. I believe Yonkis have showcased it. I know Henry has showcased it. Usually they are like the two top peeps when it comes to getting content out almost immediately. It's, as content creators, it's a grind. And when you have the community that would support you with that, it's really amazing. But yeah, enough of the chit chat. So we'll, dive into Great League a little bit today. I got some notes up because, Great League is not really per se my forte. I would say as a content creator, I'm a little bit more of a balanced battler. So without a doubt, I can play any league as long as I put my mind into it. I can thrive. But as everyone usually knows or has, really pinpointed me at this point, I'm the guy that loves Master League, which I think there just comes a little bit more to an ease with Master League than any other league, besides the specialty cups. And for that reason, I would say is I thrive in that kind of league, and maybe other people can chime in a little bit. Maybe not in just Master League, because it's a very heavy, resourceful type of league, but other specialty cups, like Master League, have a little bit more of a narrow meta, and having a little bit more of a narrow meta can help you predict team comps, and you can adjust your battles, from there. So going into Great League, it's probably one of the most chaotic leagues, especially this past season or two, because there's just so many Pokemon, and it's hard to sometimes predict the teams that you might be facing when you're battling. I would probably say, season 1 through I don't know, maybe 10. Let's just say season 1 through 10, excluding season 5, because that was an interlude season. I think even season 10 was interlude. I don't remember. There was 2 interlude seasons, but the meta wasn't as crazy, and you can really predict the teams. And if anyone that has been doing the GBL battles from the very, very beginning, you would know for sure that there was just, you know, the Azu Skarmory Sableye team, or throw in the Registeel and the Altaria. But, you know, those teams kind of evolved a little bit as seasons came along, and some of those still stand kind of true in terms of typing. You know, like the Azu Double Ghost, which we'll probably talk about in a little bit here. You know, having like a Dragon lead with a Steel type and a Poison type in the back. You know, there's things that you can kind of still predict a little bit in terms of typing, but not in terms of teams, because like I said, there's just so many Pokemon available in Great League, which is the 1500 CP Cup and below. Everything is open to legendaries, mythicals, and anything far in between that's available. So, but yeah, I mean, it's one of those things where it's still fun. You know, if you pay attention to a lot of the core type of Pokemon teams, I'm not sure if I really said that right, but if you pay attention to the core, you can kind of predict a little bit of that third. So in this episode, at least, you know, being more casual, we're in the car once again. Shout out to Will, aka Speediest Chief, doing his car segments. I'm doing my car segments too. You know, you gotta influence the content creators. You gotta influence each other, bring each other up, you know, keep producing that content. But, okay. We are jumping into Great League. So I have PV Poke on my screen, on my phone, and then I got some other notes on the side. If you guys don't know PV Poke, PVPOKE.com is a very resourceful website where you can find matchups, rankings, team building, team analysis. It's just like the sky's the limit in terms of what information you need in terms of typing, recommended move sets for your fast and charge moves, move counts. Like, if you just want to be very serious in PvP and GBL, PV Poke is the place to go. Check it out whenever you have time. Once again, it's PVPOKE.com. Such a great resource. So I have 2 tabs open for that. One is going to be talking about the ranking and the meta for Great League, and then we have some, you know, like team analysis as well too, a little bit. And then I'll jump into some cores. So jumping into Great League, we have Corsola being the top number 1 with Clodsire, Mandibuzz, Diggersby, Feraligatr, Clodsire, Corviknight number 7, Feraligatr, regular, not shadow form, Gastrodon, Primeape, and Morpeko being number 11. You'll be seeing a lot of these Pokemon in Great League for sure. Dunsparce, number 12, Pangoros, Steelix, Azumarill, Marowak, Cancel version, Shadow, which hopefully the past weeks y'all have been rating the grunts to get one, because it is a force to be reckoned with not only GBL battles, but for regionals, which might be another topic for another day to talk about. Stunfisk, not the Galarian form, but the other form. Carbink, Jumpluff, and Quagsire being up to rank 20. Some other random picks you'll see here: Sandslash, Malamar, Jumpluff, Toxapex, Clefable, Bastiodon, number 29. Ugh, I don't know. Some of y'all love that Pokemon still. Still has a lot of play, honestly. Just bashing it for fun. Walrein in 43, Annihilate regular, which is still pretty strong. Dugong, number 46, still very, very strong. We got Machamps, Registeel, Talonflame. Whoa, Shadow Electivire's 51. Hold up. Right above Greninja. I always love Electivire. Superior, which is a very top pick, surprisingly being number 54. But you guys can actually go on to PV Poke and you can go under Great League rankings and you can see the top, you know, 100, 200 Pokemon. I would say your most meta picks in a nutshell would be from rank 1 to 20. And then anything but up to like rank 100 is going to be a very, very strong pick. Just because it's shown on the higher of the ranks doesn't mean it's necessarily worse. It depends on how you play and use your team. So, but I think based on my experience so far, the past couple of rotations of Great League, when I have played it, I think really the biggest Pokemon, not the biggest Pokemon, but the most use, or the trendy Pokemon, let's put it that way, the trendy Pokemon that you'll probably see most would probably be Jumpluff. Superior. I would probably say Diggersby, Toxapex, possibly Drapion, because as we all know, Drapion is one of the best safe swaps in Great League, and it still is for its spammy movesets with Aqua Tail, Crunch, and Sludge Bomb. If you decide to be a little spicy, which I think Sludge Bomb can work depending on your team comp that you come up with, your team building skills. But yeah. Talking about cores, I wrote some down here. I think some things that would be good to start off with, either, and this is not in any particular order now. It's just stuff that just came to my mind. You know, these, as we talked about in the one episode, and I've mentioned it before with other people, for the most part, when it comes to team building, a lot of people go along the analogy of an ABB style of team building, and there's also the other popular one, which I always favored way back in like season 5 and 6, and even once in a while now up to this point, is an ABA style team. So if you really picture it, close your eyes, picture it, what you have in the lead is your A-type Pokemon. And the weaknesses that you have with your A-type Pokemon, you want to have that coverage in the back, which is going to be your 2 B-type Pokemon in the back. So, if you're, let's see. If you have, let's just say, Drapion in the lead, your weakness really is going to be your, ground type. So your mud slap users, EQs. So you want to think of ground type. So what's ground type weak against? Grass types and water types. So you want to have those type of answers in the back of your Drapion. So usually like a Feraligatr maybe. Sometimes you can also pair it up with Superior or Jumpluff, and now I'm not saying like this is a team that you should go with, but these are the things that you want to really think about as you're kind of playing and strategizing for your team building skills here. But yeah, typically what most people would talk about, or like what I like to emphasize more and more, is coming up with a core. And core is making sure that whatever you have in the lead, it usually pairs up with something that could complement the weaknesses of your Pokemon that you use in the lead. So core type Pokemon, for example, a very, very popular one in the past couple seasons, and I still see it in most ELOs, wherever you're at, ELO, is your Clodsire and Feraligatr. Feraligatr usually having Ice Beam, but I think you can go around using Crunch as well. But those are a very strong pair. I've been seeing quite a bit, for example, Dunsparce and Talonflame, a very, very strong core. Another one that I personally have been liking for a while, ever since Morpeko came into GBL, was Morpeko either in the lead or in the back, but pair it up with some sort of grass type. So typically that would be a Jumpluff or Superior, something along those lines. Something that's weak against fighting, something that's weak against charm, fairy types, because Morpeko is a dual typing, which is a dark and a electric type Pokemon. So, but I've been seeing that kind of core, which has been really strong in my opinion. I love Morpeko for its typing, for its Aura Wheel move, where it gives you the buff every time you throw the move. But things that you probably want to also think about with core dual types are going to be like Azu and Corsola, being two very, very bulky Pokemon, which is another type of strat that most people like to use sometimes, is to go all out bulk, which is what I talked about in Master League, the week ago or so on the episode. Where sometimes your strategy is to outbulk your Pokemon, and Corsola is such a strong Pokemon with Astonish, Power Gem, Nice Shade. You don't really want to use anything else, but you want to have things that it can't really beat, which would be Diggersby or Dunsparce, which for the most part, Azu is a very nice complement to Corsola. So, like I already mentioned about Azu, Corsola, Morpeko, throw in a grass type, usually Superior or Jumpluff right now, how things are trending out. Clodsire for Feraligatr is a good core. Dunsparce, Talonflame. I think even Corviknight is an interesting pick so far, once that was recently introduced. And I don't know, you could probably pair that, because that's weak against fire. not firefighting, but fire. So most things in the meta nowadays that are a fighting type, fire fire. Am I trying to say fire and flying? But a fire type, which I'm thinking in my mind is Talonflame. So, yeah, usually Morpeko has play for that. I think even a very strong team that we haven't really seen quite a bit would have been the Skarmory, Mud Boys. So Corviknight kind of being that replacement. You can see the Feraligatr, the Quagsire, which Quagsire, it's a very, very good pick still in this meta, especially a shadow form, in my opinion. You can't go wrong going with Stone Edge and Aqua Tail for the most part, but you can mix and match and throw in Mud Bomb somewhere if you really want to. But I think Aqua Tail is the preferred main move that you want to have, and then go with Mud Slap or Mud Bomb and Stone Edge. So, what other Pokemon that I haven't really talked about? I think some other odd picks, not odd, but like picks that you may not really think about too much, which I don't know. I think from the ranking system, it wasn't really up there. Well, it kind of is. Malamar and like Sandslash. I think that would be an interesting duo a little bit, because Slash can't really keep up with the ground types, which Malamar has superpower for that. Anything that Malamar is weak to, which is typically Charm, Fairy types. Sandslash has a very good typing with Steel that can complement that really, really well. So I would think about that. Malamar is a very, very strong pick. One that I haven't really talked about for a while is Dugong. I think Dugong, if you know how to use it and not necessarily go crazy with the Icy Wind spams, because people will call you out on that stuff. You want to be a little strategic and think of ways that you can throw either the Drill Run when you really need to, or throw the Icy Wind when you think they're going to like shield on you there. So Dugong is still a very, very strong pick, either in the lead just to gain that realignment, or even in the safe swap as well too, if you're trying to win alignment as well for Great League. Because at the end of the day, Great League is a very alignment based type of mechanic, when it comes to GBL. If you get alignment, you can usually win the game. If you don't get alignment, your next best thing is to have a shield advantage and energy management, or energy advantage, not management, energy advantage, which typically what I like to do with Morpeko for the most part. So I think with Dugong, you can pair it up pretty well with Marowak, because Marowak, Kanto, Shadow Marowak, what I talked about earlier, has an interesting dynamic where Marowak in most shield situations can really win matchups, especially like things that it's really weak to, like Azu. You guys may or may not know, in the two shields, Marowak can actually beat Azu, which is kind of crazy. But I think for Marowak, Kanto, being that it's weak to grass, Dugong can still pick up that fight relatively well. And like I said, most things grass type nowadays in the Great League, I would still fall within like Superior, Jumpluff. I just can't really think of like anything else that's really gonna be a very strong grass response. I'm quickly looking in here on PV Poke, and the next best thing would probably be a Bomb of Snow, which I think it's a little too frail in this meta, especially with Toxapex. So another two picks that would be interesting, and this is going up around plus 100 ranking, which is still strong, is Whimsicott. I think that's a pick as well that people kind of tend to forget, being the grass and fairy type. Sea-Bomb and Moonblast is still very good. Fairy Wind is a very awesome fast move, a 2-turn fast move, which you can catch moves potentially if you need to. And one that's kind of hard to pick a little bit, but I think it has some play here or there depending on how you play it out, is Chestnut. It has Thunder Punch superpower and a Frenzy, so depending on your team composition, you can come up with a pretty good, response with Chestnut in your team. So, what other thing I can think about as far as cores? I've seen a lot of teams, and I wrote it down because I remember that in that last rotation or so, or probably 2 rotations ago, was Diggersby and Toxapex being 2 bulky Pokemon. You can see it sometimes pair with Corsola, Azu, but I think those two are just such a great dynamic, because for most things that you need that response, it's either going to be Toxapex or it's going to be Diggersby. So keep that in mind. It's like usually those two are pretty strong. You can come up with something in the lead that's very flexible and well. Again, I think it's going to be Corsola. It's going to be Azu. You can probably do Feraligatr. Or even I wouldn't say Marowak, because then you'll be ABA weak to grass types, but probably like Annihilape as well too. Annihilape would be another good pick, because Annihilape is weak against ghost types, which Diggersby would have that answer being a normal type. And then Toxapex would be a little iffy against Corsola if you ever face one, but yeah, I think it's still a pretty good pick. So what else? I think another one that's a pretty popular pick is going to be Wigglytuff with Gastrodon and Drifblim. I've also seen in a couple of rotations where it's double ghost. So instead of like the Azu double ghost being the fairy double ghost kind of lineup, you'll see Wiggles double ghosts, which instead of seeing Gastro would be Corsola and Drifblim. I don't remember who featured that team, but that was kind of a interesting team, but I think it's pretty strong for what it's worth. So some other like off picks that people probably won't really think about, but I think it's very strong depending on how the meta shifts a little bit, would be Talonflame, Ariados, Pangoro, Galarian Moltres, Goodra, Goodra with its fast-paced Dragon Breaths, and the either Thunder Punch, Power Whip, or Draco, or Aqua Tail. It's one of those type of Pokemon that when you have more movesets for that Pokemon, it makes it a little bit harder to guess like what type of move that they're going to have, which makes your opponent kind of think like, do I need to shield? Do I not need to shield? Throw a little bit of mind games into the situation. So, but yeah, I mean, kind of rambled on quite a bit with this Great League segment, but if you can kind of pinpoint and see that, yeah, it's a chaotic cup, and I just don't really play it as much unless I already hit legend or if I start off in the season, which is usually Great League, but yeah, so I just would pay attention to the type of teams that you might face in the lead and figuring out what's the safe swap. You can almost figure out what's the third, because one of the things in Great League is the meta shifts really crazy, and you want to stay on top of the meta shift depending on what your elo is at currently when you're battling. Just because certain YouTubers or content creators will post a certain team, that doesn't mean it may work during that elo unless it's a very strong team and as its own, So I would keep that in mind. But yeah, that's about it. That's the great league spitballing teams in terms of focusing on core rather than, I guess, the actual team in itself. I know there's other content creators that showcase teams, and I think more than anything, I like to come into the aspect of understanding a strong core of a team and seeing what would be that potential third pick, especially for Great League, because people like to change things up, like I said, on the fly just to be a little bit different. So as long as you can understand when it comes to Great League what would be a very strong core to use on top of a complementary third pick, a very complement pick, I guess is the better word, or better word to use. But yeah, I think you will have something that's very usable, and then it really comes down to like fast move timing, knowing your counts, knowing when to shield, not to shield, calling the bluffs, making the catches, and making sure they don't catch moves on your throws. So, but yeah, I think for anyone that needs more questions, I'll probably elaborate on this topic a little bit more in the future. But yeah, that's about it. Like I said, I might come up with an Ultra League core type of segment later on this week. I do fly out on Friday to be in the Unova tour for the weekend, so my play day ticket is on Saturday, and I'll hopefully be able to see everyone that I would like to see on Saturday. If not, a little bit on Friday. I think Sunday I'll probably be roaming around LA taking some photos, having some photo shoots, because I am a freelance photographer outside of Pogo, so catch me outside, and you might see some snaps. I don't know. But without a doubt, hopefully see everyone there. Have safe flights to California for anyone that's traveling. And I'll see y'all in the next audio segment / podcast. Ciao.